papers.
Left off on, we didn't do the general stuff. Page 1A1. First group. He's gonna take some home. Anniversary, yeah. If you have cake without bringing an anniversary cake, I'm gonna say. First one, 1A1. Board of Trustees, top one. Any questions? Next one, court.
I'm sorry. Mike, the iPads that you and I spoke about, where do they fall on this budget? The iPads. The iPads. Yeah.
Excuse me, does everyone have their mics on? I really can't hear anything right now.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, I hear that.
Testing.
He was off.
Nelson's was off.
Court?
No questions there from me.
Any other questions? Traffic?
No questions there from me.
Anybody else? Executive?
The only question I have is, does mayor conference actually only mean the mayor? Or like if Trustee Lopez wanted to go to a conference, it would come out of somewhere else?
That line's actually our dues.
Okay.
For here. And then, so if somebody went to a conference, we would appropriate that from somewhere else.
Like miscellaneous or something?
Correct.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Questions? Treasurer?
Nothing at this time for me. I don't have anything.
Hey, nobody?
Next, just one second, please. On the treasurer, auditing, we're going from 40 to 70,000? Why is that for?
Because we're gonna be very busy because they're coming back in May to finish the, the year that's pending, and then they're just gonna start zipping them off one at a time.
All right, so 2017 still hasn't been closed?
18.
18, I'm sorry.
All the work for here and in the computer system is done, and they have been scheduled. The auditors, they have to physically come in now and do their work. And it took some time to get them scheduled because, you just can't drop what they're doing. Scheduled for May, correct? Yeah. So there'll be a couple more, there'll be like at least 2 years of bills in this year, in that year.
Thank you, Mike.
Assessor? No questions? Clerk? Questions?
I'm good there.
Law?
Just one question, Mr. Mills. How are we, in terms of those lines for this current budget? Did we properly allocate?
What are we gonna do?
Can you hear me?
Gonna try to do a top vote for us?
Are we okay for that line item for this budget? I just want to make sure that I do see an increase for the 24-25 budget, but I want to make sure that we're safe there.
When you put all the lines together, the total, we're gonna be right around there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dan, I ask every year. They're good?
He actually provided me this year with his amendment, and it does have a slight
I
increase.
see, but it's good?
Yeah.
Good. Ask every year. Any other questions? Law? Elections?
No issues there.
Any questions? Records management?
No, I'm good.
For records management, if someone can just speak, because generally speaking, I don't think the average individual watching this would actually know what it means by records management and seeing a price tag of $22,500 for that. So if someone could speak to, preferably Mr. Mills, could speak to exactly what is included within records management.
Most of that is storage. We have a lot of records, which one of these years, we're actually going to do inventory and possibly gonna get rid of some of it. They're in storage at Iron Mountain up in Rosendale. Which if you ever get a chance to stop by there, it's a really cool place. Physically cool, because it's inside of a mountain, but then cool visuals. And then the personal services is where I use, like we have part-time people, like in the summertime, we'll have a girl stop in for a week or two, or stuff like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? 1A3, Village Hall.
Personnel services, part-time. We went from 4,000 to 15,000. Why is that, Mr. Mills?
That accounts for the one assistant that we have here part-time. That was never really budgeted, and this year it's actually budgeted. It's in that line.
Who is it?
He works in Sandy's office and then does other things.
And his name is?
Michael. Another Michael.
I'm not sure what you mean by wasn't budgeted.
it was being taken out of several different lines over the time that he's been here. It's something that it started in COVID time,
Okay.
so that's the line that it belongs in.
But you would have made us aware of that if we were approving a position and there wasn't a line for it. And I don't recall us doing that. I guess the greater question is, did we?
Not on a full-time basis, no, not on a regular basis. He's characterized with civil service as, part-time available.
He does
Okay.
what Rose does, the back tickets too. He does all the old tickets. We used to have Rose doing that for years.
I know I'm getting old, but no, I'm being serious, no, I just don't know that name. So I don't remember that appointment. Okay, thank you.
Village Hall, any other questions? The next one, government support. Yeah, change that. On-street parking.
So for on-street parking, who's included in personnel for that?
Dennis, Sam.
Half of Dennis and all of Sam.
Okay. Is there a way, and I don't know if, I'm hoping that the answer to my question can be something that is budget neutral. And if it is not, then we can look into the future for this, but I think it would benefit us to ensure that they are in vehicles that state parking enforcement, as opposed to vehicles that state police. And ensuring that they are in attire that make it clear to residents or even visitors of their role. I've often been asked, and there seems to be a level of confusion. So is there an ability from not budgetary, but are there available vehicles that can be reformatted to read parking enforcement to ensure that there is a level of understanding of what role that they're playing at that moment?
We've kicked that around for the last 50 years. The answer was a lot of folds to that. One, the police department uses their cars when their cars go down. Okay. The last, how many years they've been constables, so they can be in a regular police car. And when they're out there escorting a funeral or directing traffic at the intersections for crossing guards in the morning and at the schools and stuff, we've talked it over for many years. It's better being a police car.
Yeah, that,
So, and the
no, that
uniforms aren't, they don't say police, so, yeah.
no, that definitely makes sense. I think it's just they're acting as constables during.
But they're not, though, that's the problem. They're acting as 4 different things during the day.
And that's the
They would
confusion.
have to keep changing cars.
That's the confusion, right? So I think, I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough, but it's tough, but it's not. Like, we can figure out a way, because if it's during the workday, we know they're doing parking enforcement, right? So if they're being paid, they would obviously be doing parking enforcement, because if it's during the day, then it obviously couldn't be constable work, because constables can't get paid for that, right? So it's one of those things where I feel like we can figure out a way to ensure that it's clear the role in which they're playing and when. because again, there are levels of confusion to those who may not live here, who do visit here, and so getting back to like the budget neutral question, is there a spare vehicle that can be? And if not, okay, I understand that, we can figure out an alternative, but Mr. Mills, I figured I would just throw out the question and ask.
He has no right to second, because the cars that they're changing into are being sold at auction. Because they're past their life. In other words, the car Sam used to drive is tired and is shot. So he's getting a hand-me-down, so his car is going to auction, because it's no longer any good.
Okay.
So as of now, there's no issue cars. Parking, control of dogs, nothing there because the town does that first now. Civil defense. No questions? Register vital statistics. No questions?
Mayor, I'm sorry, could we go back to civil defense? Is that what the CERT team falls under?
No.
No?
Used to have their own,
And are they still in existence?
yes.
Okay.
All right. Then we used to have them in something else, in the police? Or something? Youth court, okay. I was thinking. Vital statistics, no other questions? Page 1A6 is done. 1A7. Questions? Next one, senior center.
That went up a little bit because of the use that it's being used a lot more.
I just want to clarify before I go back, because I don't know if we want to adequately evaluate it. Are we going to go back through the other ones that we're skipping, for example? Like because I know you have things to add for IT, you have things to discuss about regulations. I didn't know if we were going to go back to those separate departments or, okay, I just want to make sure that I do that in there. Okay, thank you.
Because these we didn't do.
Thanks.
Library, culture.
But we just seeing, what is the parking? Yeah. Okay. is that?
Yeah, they're nice enough to
Did you hear that, Sid?
put it in.
No,
Joe asked about what's the parking on the senior center. I explained that the right side parking, the actual parking spaces are, the property there is owned by Live Oak and we pay rent for those.
correct. Thank you.
Questions and culture?
I just, we had gotten a grant to fix the cemeteries. Where does that stand now? We haven't heard anything about it. It was started.
Nothing
Well,
started, nothing, that's not.
Well,
on
they
this-
fixed the wall or something.
That's, well, we fixed the wall ourselves. That had nothing to do with that project. And that other mess out there, nothing to do with us either. The environmental is still being done. And actually, I just got, it's been a long time. It's been a circus, to lack of better words. The process by which the state does these paperwork things, like I'll give you an example the other day. I just got, and it's on the third try to sign the document, just got the contract for the fire cameras, not the body cameras, the infrared. It's been a year. So anyway, SHPO just sent me back questions, which I got to get together with Tony. They were asking me for more of the design of the beginning of it up here where we put some benches and a little patio, what that material is going to be. And then they also asked me for the cleaning of the stones, what that chemical is going to be. And I could have asked me that a year ago, both of those questions. So that's where that sits.
Okay.
I have a question about celebrations. We bumped that up last year. Are we projected to finish the year within the expanded budget?
In likelihood, it's going to be below that.
Oh, okay.
That item, we're going to come back to, because when I do remember I said I was going to put the IT stuff together and then tell you how to pay for it?
Right.
There's a little bit that's going to come out of that if you do it. Which will
Okay.
match basically what you spent this year. Or
Okay.
what it's scheduled.
188, we did. 189, we can't change.
Sure you can. You can change anything you want. Doesn't mean it's going to work. I can tell you, no, I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
2A1, revenues.
We're going to come back here too when I get my sheet.
One F1 we did. One F2, another one we can't change. Two F1.
So, Trustee Lopez, to show you, to answer your question on the 2F1. So, you can see that I got the meter sales going up. That's basically the raising the rates. That's all that is. Because we're never going to sell more water than we do, hopefully, because if we do, we're going to outgrow ourselves. So basically what that is that reflects that, which then the expenses mirror that. So for me to get to that 1.82 number, I gotta raise rates.
Last page is just salaries. If you want to see what individual ones are, but they're in the line items. Okay,
Start with the T.
anyone, yeah. Whichever one's on top.
So what I did is, if you go to take your eyes to the yellows. So,
Mike, what are we working from?
the one I just emailed to you, the IT services operational budget item.
Okay, I got it.
So, the total for the year, basically what I did is, because you had the leases in there. So go to the second one, new village cameras, total was, $49,270. But that lease was $1,300 a month, which comes out to $16 grand a year. So the total for the year in that line goes to $16 grand. And then same thing down with the new PD desk item. That works out to be $32,000 per year. So that line, meaning total for the year, is everything. And that's for this year. So some of those things will disappear, but the leases will continue. And then any service contracts, which I don't know what the cost of that is now. Then if you go to the next side, the area, that 28,000 would be split up into 9,500 police, 9,500 court, 9,500 village hall. And they would be appropriated within those budgets. The second one, the gas pump, is various departments, everyone. The third is totally parks. The fourth is totally EMS. And the final one is totally police. So at the end of the day, if we do all of them, which through this exercise, I've kept it at all of them. And I'm rounding it off because I use round numbers in the budget of $280,000. Then what I did, so any questions on that? So if you pressed me and you said that you got to find something, and what I did is I didn't take them out because if I took anything out of here, that was going to be the next thing that broke. There's no doubt in my mind. The ones that I would remove, you're saving pennies. The gas pump I would take out and do that a year following, and the DeLuca Park camera, I would do that, but you're talking pennies. And actually, the DeLuca Park camera would have come in real handy yesterday or today, or early this morning, because we have a situation down there that's being addressed. But it could have been addressed a whole lot faster if we had that. And then everything else, all of those items, I could debate on the desk forever, that could wait a year, and Mike would counter me with his debate, and Steve probably a debate as well. So instead of me losing that fight, I'm advocating that you do it. So then the next piece, and we can come back to this. Let me stay with where I'm going, because I have another sheet that then shows some changes. Then the next piece was the recreation department. So I spent a lot of time over the last week trying to figure out what that cost was going to be. Because I'll be honest with you, never ran a full-blown recreation department before. Never had the need to, never had the reason to have more knowledge of the prices, et cetera, in the operation than we have today. So I reached out to, I don't make things up. I reached out to some of the professionals in the business that I know. One main person being Wayne Betts, who is part of our recreation program and also the recreation commissioner of the city of White Plains. He gave me a lot of good advice, and then we contacted other people, and we basically, I'll talk about the numbers first, and then I'll talk about my recommendation as well as Wayne and some other people. To start a better program today, we'll say for the next year, you're talking just to start in the ballpark of $350,000. You're talking about hiring a director, or as Wayne put it, a superintendent, and then I'll tell you the reasons for that in a minute, as not a lower position, and possibly another part-time person, and then program. So there's not a lot of program in that $350,000. The superintendent, director, personnel is going to cost you $150,000. That's with benefits, everything. The person under them is probably going to cost, with benefits, $100,000. So you start the day at $250,000, and you didn't do anything better yet. You didn't add a thing. You didn't add a badminton league. You didn't add a thing. So our other problem, and I went through this with Wayne and the town of Greenberg and a couple of the other villages, we don't have the facilities to add much programming. So for us to get more involved in the recreation business, we're going to have to develop a partnership with the school, without question. We're going to need their facilities to do probably not a lot of the youth stuff, but the adult stuff, if you're going to add adult program. Whether it's leagues, sports leagues, or classes, a gardening class, whatever, those types of things. So we're not also going to be able to do that today. So I looked at it and I broke it down and I said, okay, how do we start? And the first thing is you need a leader. So the first piece to do is to hire the leader. Because the leader should probably be a parcel of putting the program together, of designing it. Figuring out what your needs are in terms of your population, figuring out what your needs are in terms of facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So in my budget exercise tonight, and my recommendation is that we add $150,000 to the, $200,000 to the rec department, which would be in $150,000 of it would be in personnel, which is basically the director. And then $50,000 for us to build out an office and put together an office, computers, et cetera, for the rec people. Don't know what the answer to where that is yet either. And it's going to start, so I really wish Wayne could have come tonight, because we should really involve him in this. He's a great resource, and if we can tap him, but he's tonight at the New York State Recreation Leaders Conference, so couldn't join us. He's getting more educated, but he's more than happy to come here next week or whenever you would like to meet with him to talk about it. But one of the ideas that him and I came up with is that we should really put a committee together of community members. Wayne said he would be more than happy to lead it, or at least participate in it. Members of the board, personnel, and other possible professionals from the recreation community. and talk about, what's your leader look like? What's your program today look like? What are you doing today? What can you do better of what you're doing today? And then what really should you add? And part of that whole process is, I think, involving the community, involving parents, involving the kids, involving school, teachers, all of those people. So we're not going to do that today. We're not going to do that tomorrow. Took us how many meetings, Mayor, to figure out what color the roof was going to be? Not this board, but a different board. So, we know that these things aren't going to be done overnight. So my recommendation in terms of the budget, because hopefully sometime after June, you're moving along, and then that's when you can start spending some money, possibly. So I'm talking 200 grand, the leader, the office, blah, 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 blah. Just so you know, so when we get to the point of like the documents that Matt put together, I sent you that civil service thing for a reason, because I wanted to get you thinking. And I wanted to get you thinking of what is a rec program to you? Is a rec program to you what we're doing today in a badminton league? Is a rec program what we're doing today and a whole lot more? I think everybody agrees. I think it's a whole lot more, but it's not going to be what everybody else is doing because you can't afford to do that today. So just the process of hiring somebody. The thing that Matt did is a nice start, but that's probably doesn't include everything that everybody else thought, or maybe it has too much in it. That's the first step, decide what that is. Because that's the next thing. We have to first create the position with civil service. They have to classify the position. In all likelihood, there is a list, most likely, for that type of position. If not, there could be a provisional with a test having to be done. So we're talking probably fast track 4 months, slow track 6 months. Okay. So how do we pay for all my things? Usually I come in, and when I do these things, they don't change my tentative budget much. Unfortunately, that's not the case today. It's too much money.
That's a first.
Yeah, because this budget doesn't have a lot of play in it, like my budget always. So the way to read this, first piece is the IT piece. So that's all the ads, that's the ad sheet, and that's $208,000. The rec, the head person is we're gonna call it the recreation superintendent today. That's $150,000. That's all personnel. The rec office, we're gonna say is probably part a person, very small part eventually. And then setting up the office, desk, computers, building an office, that type of thing. So that totals $408,000. I don't have a place in the budget where I can just remove or just change 400,000 from here to there. So what I did is I went through, and the contingency line, I'm proposing to reduce that by 20,000 to $255,000. That's still above what we were at last year. Celebrations, taking 10,000 from there and making that 140, which is still below what's probably going to be spent this year. Applied fund balance. I had reduced that in the budget because the mayor will tell you, and the people who follow me, since I've been here, I've tried to lower that. I mean, at one point, we were doing $1 million in that every year. And last year, I think we were down to 300 without turning to that page. This year I had it at 225. So I'm talking about raising that up by 225 to 350, which is basically where we've been over the last several years. County sales tax, I'm projecting we can bump that up by 100,000. Mortgage tax, bump that up by 25,000. And so what ends up happening, what I mean by add to various lines associated, The balance is the various lines, meaning these things here. So instead of me writing them all out where I'm gonna put it, they're all grouped together. So at the end of the day, if you approve this, at some point, I'm gonna go through, Anna and I are, we're gonna add $50 here, $100 there. I don't think you wanted to go through that exercise. So that's what that represents. What that does now is, that doesn't pay dollar to dollar what's in the budget. I think I come up hundred and some thousand short. So what that means is the tax rate's gonna change. So the tentative rate is $10.867. The new rate will go up to 10.971. Year to year, that's a 1.9% increase, where you were at 9.5. And tentative budget to this new budget is a 1% difference. We're talking pennies. Not like I'm totally confused.
I think it's important to make the note, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So from what we currently have, I don't think there should have been any expectation, and it certainly wasn't an expectation on my part that we would go from base level or below base level in terms of what we're offering to offering the full-fledged recreational program of a Tarrytown. I don't think that's reasonable to do in 1 year, and I don't think that it should have been the expectation necessarily. But I think you nailed it when you said that this is where we have to start. And there does need to be someone in charge, and that is their day-to-day job of beginning to develop this. This is going to be an attractive position to fill because there isn't anything, and someone that has the ability to come in here and craft it. But collaboration is the key, and I think you again highlighted that point, bringing together the correct stakeholders to begin to determine what it is our community is looking for. You provided a piece of information here that I think is crucial in how we begin to format what that committee would look like. It's a document that goes through what the median age is across all of the villages in the town of Greenburgh. And in fact, we are the youngest at 35.1. And I think that speaks to the fact that there should be a focus on youth programming and after-school programming. I attended the Westchester Municipal Officials Association meeting this last week, and one of the featured presentations was about how Rybrook has partnered with their schools to offer after-school programming in the schools through their municipality. And that level of collaboration was born out of determining what does this community need and what were they clamoring for. So in taking a look at what the median age is, in hearing also what our poverty rate is as well, which while we're the youngest, we have the lowest median income and the highest poverty rate. What does that tell me? We live in a working class community. And that would also lead me to believe that our parents are not always in a position to either, one, be able to supervise or pick up their child right after school. They may be working. Us providing programming where they have at least 2 or 3 extra hours and not have to worry about paying through the nose for some type of a babysitter. That is how we're responding to a community that we live in. That is showing that we're listening to what they need. And I do think we need to start small, but when we start small, we think big. And when we sit around the table and we bring the right parties together and we start putting this together, and we're bringing the schools and we're bringing the businesses and we're doing all this together, we have the potential to do something great. And I would want to make sure that at those tables are also potentially representatives from these other villages. They've had to do this before. You know, there are as close to an equal as we're going to get. We need to have them there. But I think the administrator did a great job of being able to find the funding to get us started with something that many at this days have echoed is long overdue. So thank you for your diligence and your hard work on this, and I think we're absolutely headed in the right direction to being on par with our colleagues in the other villages. So thank you.
And I think hiring a professional that's trained in this type of work would really be advantageous. I was just looking on the website from my alma mater, East Stroudsburg. They have a bachelor's degree in recreation services management. That would be the type of graduate I think that would be a good fit for a job like this.
One of the points that I said I would come back to, I'm calling this position the recreation superintendent, and because that's what all the other villages, that's what they have. So in reality, we would be quicker in not having to reinvent the wheel. We can use their, start with their job description and everything. But the other piece of it, and this didn't come from me. This came from Wayne, because I was looking at a slot down from the superintendent. I kept calling it director or coordinator, and Wayne said, "No, you don't want to do that." And I was like, "Okay, tell me why. Educate me, please." And what he said to me was, you have the opportunity to get somebody probably new, maybe stepping into that position, or sort of doing that halfway at this point. But if you don't start it at the top, starting at the top, you're gonna get a better candidate pool. He says, also, if you start it with the director or whatever, that person's gonna wanna be the superintendent someday. So how long are they gonna be here? I was like, I never thought of that. And he said, in this line of work, those highly educated, good people are gonna get grabbed up and go where the money is. So unless you have somebody who's dedicated to your community, like somebody who lives here, who has all those credentials, and will give up going to be the commissioner of White Plains to be in Elmsford where they live, i.e. Wayne. But he's not going to do it. He's going to help. So that's why I started at the top.
Anybody else have any other questions? Take a 5-minute recess and